Hey everyone, John here, and I found myself going down a rabbit hole. Again. I was just trying to figure out if GameCube controllers can work on the Wii menu yet via homebrew, and it turns out that's still not been cracked. But that led me to finding this. Fake Mode. This allows DualShock 3s and DualShock 4s to be used in place of a Wii remote. And with a DualShock 4, the touchpad is used to replicate the IR sensor, so you can get actual pointing just by swiping around. And DualShock 3s and DualShock 4s are just capable of Wii-style motion. So that's very cool. But then I thought, has anyone just mapped motion controls to buttons on native hardware? Because of course that's possible via emulation, but on an actual Wii, can that be done? Well, I found something called RV Loader. And RV Loader is an environment made for portable Wii systems. So systems stripped of their disk drives and Bluetooth chips and Wi-Fi chips, just the bare essentials to run in a portable manner, giving you portable GameCube and Wii games. So why am I interested in that? I don't have a portable Wii or a portable GameCube. I've just got a regular, untouched piece of Wii hardware. Well, RV Loader contains exactly what I'm looking for. There's a feature in this set called GC to Wiimote, where you can take all of Wii's mappings and just put them on a GameCube controller. And there are limitations, and we'll come to those as they pop up. But we can take motion controls and pointing and put them directly on a GameCube controller. So, let's see some of this in action. RV Loader may seem a bit intimidating with all this talk about replacing the Wii menu, but using Preloader, it's very easy to choose which system menu you want, the Wii menu or RV Loader. Okay? It's not that scary. Don't worry. Anyway, once we're here, RV Loader doesn't rely on the disk drive or SD card reader, just USB drives. So if you've got some games, back them up to USB. This is the shortcoming of this being a portable intended interface. But from there, just press B on your game, enable GC to Wiimote, and then change the controls. Now, unfortunately, there are some limitations here as well. While you can do most stuff, like mapping pointing and mapping waggle, you cannot map tilt. So games like Sonic and the Secret Rings and Excitebots just aren't really playable with this. And then you've got games like Wario Land the Shake Dimension, or Wario Land Shake It, where at certain points to throw things, you've got to tilt the remote. And that's not possible. Every other part of this game is totally fine, like shaking works, jumping works, doing the bash works, but I cannot throw this to get past the tutorial. But let's stop talking about what doesn't work. Let's show some results. This is Metroid Other M. This game is played with the Wii remote on its side, and that was always a bit weird given this is a fully 3D game. That means you're hitting the corners of the Wii remote's D-pad a lot, and that's just not very comfortable. This game can hurt your thumb after a while. But using GC to Wiimote, we can put that D-pad on the GameCube's analog stick. We can put shoot on B and jump on A, but what about pointing at the screen? How does that work? Well, I'm at pointing to the C stick, and just wiggling that around isn't going to make you point at the screen. You need some waggle involved as well, so I put waggle on up on the D-pad. So now when I press up on the D-pad while using the C stick, we go into aiming. This is the one area where it's not really an improvement over the Wii, but it works, it functions. It's fiddly, aiming isn't easy, but this does work. And for the most part, just moment-to-moment gameplay, I feel like Other M is better this way. And I wish this game at least supported the nunchuck or something at launch. Why was it just a Wii remote on its side? And while we can't play Sonic and the Secret Rings, we can play Sonic and the Black Knight, given this game used the nunchuck for movement. The controls for this game were actually pretty traditional. The nunchuck moved Sonic, the A button made him jump. The only thing that involved motion controls was moving the sword, which was just waggle. And so of course, just mapping waggle to the B button works incredibly well. This doesn't feel like playing a game made for motion controls with a controller. It just feels like it was designed this way. The instant feedback of pressing B and having that sword swing is incredibly natural. There's nothing Wii feeling about this. Sonic and the Black Knight probably should have supported the classic controller in the GameCube controller. I'm not really sure why it didn't. Maybe the mini-games, I don't know. But this is pretty much flawless, and of course when it comes to the menu with pointing, that can be perfectly achieved as well. Big thumbs up all around, this is great. And Super Mario Galaxy 2. We saw with 3D All-Stars that Nintendo were willing to give the original Mario Galaxy traditional controls, and while I would still argue the gameplay's better with the Wii Remote pointing, putting the shake on a button is very welcome, and I think we can basically achieve the same thing here too. We can put the pointer on the C stick, jump on A, spin with B, and the Wii's trigger, the Wii's B button, I'm going to put on the L button to sort of still replicate that trigger, while the Z button is going to be on R for long jumps and crouch jumps. And after a bit of playing, there's definitely a hurdle, and that's this green guy here. The pointer's got a lot more of a role in Mario Galaxy 2 as it controls Yoshi's tongue. It can be used for platforming, for combat, for pretty much everything. And while it does still work, it is much more fiddly. Mario Galaxy 1 got away with it far better, but even though this is fiddly, it's still playable. But of course, as the game goes on, there are levels that require tilt, and we can't do that with this. It works for quite a few levels, but there's definitely some hurdles in playing Mario Galaxy 2 without Wii controls. But let's stick to Mario. How about Super Paper Mario? Fellas, I forgot how good this game is. The core mechanic of flipping from 2D to 3D is rad as flip. I don't know how they coded that. Like, this shouldn't be possible on the Wii, but they did it. And Super was originally meant to be a GameCube game, making this a very fascinating case study. And you know what? It works really, really well with the GameCube controller. This game didn't go crazy with Wii Motion, but it did map waggle to the Z button, so when jumping off an enemy you can sort of do a little shake and get some more points in the air. But I think the main motion implementation was pointing, just pointing at the screen every now and then to reveal things. And with this game, your pointer just sort of has to be off the screen and it'll go back to regular gameplay. So if you just sort of move the C stick so it's no longer on the screen, you'll go back to moving around. If it's still on the screen, then you'll be platforming around. Like that's really all it comes down to. Otherwise, you've got Super Paper Mario with a GameCube controller. And of course, if you want to, you can map the D-pad to the analog stick, making those 3D moments a bit more comfortable. Though with all of this, you're still getting 8 directions. It's digital inputs on an analog stick. But it feels good. Heck yeah, this is a great one. Now let's do an interesting one. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Let's take a GameCube game that was ported to Wii, that was given Wii controls, and give it GameCube controls back. Okay? Now this one works very well. You can just map waggle to the B button to basically get a very similar control scheme to the GameCube version, and it's very, very responsive. Lovely. And because this is the Wii version, you get more item slots than the GameCube version, which is just kind of nice. And general controls and menu navigation are just very simple and easy. The only thing that's a little bit tricky is aiming. The cursor was made for pointing, and so maneuvering it with an analog stick isn't exactly easy, and you won't get the same sort of magnetic auto-aim that you'd usually get with a controller because it wasn't made for this. And so just trying to hit things, it can be pretty rough. Now, here's a good time to mention another negative with this entire setup. I can't get nunchuck shakes to work at all. Like, I can map them, they're clearly here in the menu, but no matter what game it is or what button I assign it to, nothing happens with a nunchuck shake. I can press the X, Y, and Z axis at the same time, I can press them all independently. Nunchuck shakes are just not picked up anywhere. And so that makes another game, being Mad World, that was very close to being perfectly playable, just not quite playable. You can map vertical and horizontal hits just fine, that's perfect. It feels great with the chainsaw, like all that stuff is really, really good. But dodging is on a nunchuck shake, and I can't do that! I can't get past the tutorial. And Mad World was feeling really, really good with these controls. Like, if this game ever got ported to modern systems, it would feel good. I can tell you that now. This feels generally great, but I just can't play more of it. And let's stick on this nunchuck stuff for a second, because one thing I wanted to do was finally give Donkey Kong Jet Race, or Donkey Kong Barrel Blast as you call it in America, I wanted to give that game back its barrel controls. And yeah, you can map the DK bongos. These are basically just big X and big Y buttons. But because in this game the nunchuck controls the left bongo, you just can't play it. The dream of Donkey Kong Barrel Blast with DK bongos was within our grasp, but it's not meant to be. And another dream that's not meant to be is a very big one. Donkey Kong Country returns. This game's in a very weird limbo, where the Wii version is 60 FPS, but you've got to shake to roll, which feels a bit weird, whereas the 3DS version has X and Y for roll, which feels great, but it's 30 FPS, so if only we could give the Wii version button rolling. None of my inputs get recognized. I've tried everything. I've tried mapping to different buttons, I've tried taking another game's control scheme and changing the ID and trying to get it all to work that way. No, it will not recognize a single input, and I'm not sure why. Please let me play. Rhythm Heaven Fever was the same too, or Beat the Beat Rhythm Paradise as we call it here. This game doesn't have motion, I just kind of wanted to play it with a GameCube controller. But it won't take anything. Next we have New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and we tried this with the Fake Mode, which worked very well, but the shortcoming with that is Shake is still on a regular motion-controlled shake. So what if we gave New Super Mario Bros. Wii the parity of modern Mario control schemes, where Shake is on the R button? Can we do that? Yeah, absolutely perfectly, we can. So this makes Wii play basically like New Super Mario Bros. U, and it's really, really good. Like, this is very responsive, it feels great, and it works very well with the propeller suit too. But of course the shortcoming is when it comes to tilting. We can't tilt these platforms here, and while for the most part that's not a huge problem, I'm pretty sure there are levels later on where it becomes a bit more of a requirement, so I don't think the entire game will be playable this way. But at least a big chunk of it is. I wanted to pull a Twilight Princess again and give Mario Power Tennis back its regular controls, so we maintain the 16:9 of the Wii version, but have the better inputs of the GameCube version. But this proved a little bit too tricky. For a moment, I thought this just wasn't working at all, but pressing the X and Y axis in tandem, or the X and Z axis, or the Z and Y axis, that does pull off some moves, but pulling off all of them seems a bit too out of the boundaries of what this can do. GC to Wiimote works well for Waggle, but this is a bit too advanced for that. And also, there was a strange latency that I wasn't experiencing with other games, like even moving the cursor around in the menu felt quite sluggish and unresponsive. So yeah, I'm gonna say that this one, it doesn't really work, but look, I won this point. Ignore the other ones. So, what's the big game we're ending on? Link's crossbow training. I mean, it works. I didn't say it works well, but it works. Yeah, the biggest shortcoming with this setup is while you can map the pointer to a stick, I don't know if you should map the pointer to a stick. It makes it playable, I suppose, and if anyone has a disability where they can't point at the screen but they can still move sticks around, this makes the game playable. That's great. But I don't think you're going to hit that much playing like this. Like, this is meant to be quite a fast-paced game, and especially in later levels, you're probably going to struggle a little bit. But yes, Link's crossbow training is entirely playable like this. And that would mean that the bulk of Wii rail shooters like House of the Dead Overkill and Ghost Squad would also work, I want to say well, like they would work like this. There's definitely some limitations with GC to Wiimote, but in games that really work, like Sonic and the Black Knight, it's an absolute dream. And some games like Metroid Other M, while there's still some disadvantages, they just play so beautifully. And I've always wanted Other M to play with an analog stick, and now I suppose I've got that. All this really needs is Donkey Kong Country Returns. Like, that was the game I was hoping would work when I came across this piece of homebrew, but unfortunately, it won't recognize my buttons. But anyway, thank you for watching all the way through, and because you've watched all the way until the end, it is hot take time. And my hot take today, let me just get my proper moment. Here we go. My hot take today is this little thing here is a piece of beauty. I love the Wii Remote. And I know I've just done an entire video about replacing it with traditional controls, but some games are so much better with a Wii Remote. I love how versatile it is. You can place side-scrollers on its side like this, like an NES controller, or, my favorite part, this. The IR sender going to the sensor bar of the IR receiver, allowing pointing to become a mainstay in the entire era of games. This let light gun games live for an entire generation longer, but I think the best part was when pointing could find its way into traditional games, because with pointing with the Wii Remote, you've still got all the buttons at the ready. You can still use the A button, the nunchuck, the B button, but you're pointing at the screen as you would a regular controller anyway. And this let games like New Play Control Pikmin play better than any other version of Pikmin 1, whether it's GameCube or Switch. And when it came to Pikmin 3 on the Wii U, I couldn't ditch this setup. This was just so perfect. And aiming in general, like in Twilight Princess, in Skyward Sword, in Zack and Wiki with pointing, like, it's just perfect. It allows shooters to be a bit more exciting as well. There was an entire community wrapping behind Call of Duty on the Wii for years and years and years. People were still playing Call of Duty 4 Reflex up until those servers shut down. And when it came to the Wii U, people were still playing like Black Ops 2 with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck on the Wii U as long as they could, because that setup is just so damn fun. Whether it's World of Goo or whatever else, the Wii Remote cannot be replaced, and I still vastly prefer this to just gyro pointing, because it's got that point of reference being the sensor bar. But yeah, what a lovely controller and one that I think is absolutely timeless. Of course, it depends on the game. Not everything's great with the Wii Remote, and that's where the GameCube controller comes in. A lot of versatility again on the Wii, but yeah, love a Wii Remote. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye, everyone.